Hi, I'm Alex Fraycon. You're listening to My Therapist and I, a podcast that isn't just about therapy, it is therapy. More specifically, my therapy. Each week I'll sit down with my therapist, Dr. Stephen Harris of the University of Minnesota. We'll talk about whatever's on my mind, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you get to be a fly on the wall from wherever it is that you choose to listen to. In episode 2, we celebrate the fact that Dr. Steve has agreed to come back and continue working with me. But beyond that, I talk about a feeling that I've been having lately, a feeling of being lost, both figuratively and literally. Hope you enjoy. What do you know? This is technically could be a second episode. We've come so far. Welcome to, I'm going to come up with some kind of intro, some kind of jingle maybe, but this is My Therapist and I, a podcast.
Jingle.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it'll be.
That's your hook to get me back, I think.
Yeah, exactly. There will be a jingle.
Jingle forthcoming.
This is a podcast that it's not about therapy. It is therapy. So in this podcast, each episode, I'll look at it like a therapy session, and you get to be a fly on the wall and see, how therapy, what it can be like, and hopefully glean whatever kind of insights you can from the safety of your own home. No one has to know, or everyone can know. Maybe you do a listening party. That would be a lot of fun. Maybe one day that would make me actually quite happy. But I am joined by my therapist, Steve, my podcast therapist, Steve. Again, full disclaimer, I have my own personal therapist outside of this podcast. So anything that we discuss here, I discuss in length. I have checks and balances, safety nets, etc. I am fully taken care of. However, I still want this, to be a learning experience for anyone who's curious about therapy. Thanks for coming back, Steve. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
The last episode we talked about we talked about a lot of stuff, but we dove into, what it's like to kind of have that first session and feel each other out. But where we ended, which I thought was really powerful, was this idea of, as you said it, therapy is all about kind of sharing humanity with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonated with me. It's more or less, why I found therapy to be so profound. So thank you for sharing that. I think you articulated it quite well. In this episode, I think I want to talk about a few things a little bit more specific.
Okay.
That happened to me recently. So, big news. I think I told you this via text, but over the weekend, I got engaged.
Yeah.
I think there's an applause button here. I think it's...
You need a producer, I think.
Hold on. Let me just see if I can get this door. No.
That was crickets.
There it is.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Applause. I got engaged to my wonderful fiance. So we were up north at Grand Marais, and we went hiking.
Mm-hmm.
So this story really has nothing to do with my fiance. I just wanted to mention that I got engaged. Hey.
It's one way to get her to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, she's going to be like sweating bullets. She's like, what are you going to say next? Please don't talk about me. So don't worry. I'm not going to talk about it. We went on a hike, and I didn't really know much about the trail. I knew how long roughly it was going to take, but I didn't really know which way I was going, and I was kind of in charge. The experience was, at first it was really scenic. It was great. But then about 20 minutes in, I was like, I feel like it shouldn't have been this long. And I started worrying about getting lost. And I could tell Haley, my fiance, was a little bit frustrated too. She's like, do you know where you're going? What's the deal? Are you sure we're going? And I found myself being like, I need to check the map because I don't know where I'm going. The reason I bring this story up is something that I struggle with, I think, on a kind of, let's be honest, daily basis. So my career, what I do for a profession, is I have a company. I started my own content agency. It's called Cool Story. We operate this, our kind of catchphrase is we operate at the intersection of advertising and entertainment. long story short, we create engaging video content for people, whether it's a short film, film, television, or commercials, YouTube, social media content. We just make interesting stuff. That journey for me is really hard at times. And I find myself struggling with a lot of doubt. Am I good enough to do this? Is this stupid? Am I going to fail? And as I was walking on that trail, I thought to myself, this reminds me of what like my daily existence is like. I feel like every day for my work and my career, I'm on a trail. I have an idea of where I want to get to, but I don't know if I'm headed the right way. I don't know. And with each hour that goes by, I start to worry, am I just getting further lost? Like, am I just getting that much deeper into trouble? And so I was on this hike. Finally, I took out my phone and I looked on Google Maps, and sure enough, we were like 10 minutes away from the destination. And the second I had that information, I was just like, oh, everything's cool. Yeah, no issues whatsoever. But I think what's so hard in my personal life is like, I'll never know how close I am to being quote unquote successful. Like, I just have this constant voice that's like, dude, we could be heading, like, there's no Google Maps for me to open up and be like, yep, you're totally headed on the right direction.
Oh, hang on. Are you sure there's no Google Maps for you?
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I'm being serious as well.
I don't know.
It's like, what's the equivalent, right? You're hiking and you can pull that up. Luckily, you had coverage, right? So
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
actually find it. You find your blip. But my guess is that there probably is some kind of Google Maps for you. In your business world, in your personal life, those kinds of things. Like, to me, the Google Map, the equivalent of the Google Maps is knowing what you want to get out of it. At the end of the day, or at the end of my career, at the end of my marriage, what do I want? Like, what do I want this to have meant? What do I want this experience to be like? Because you could have started that hike up in the North Shore. You could have started that hike saying, I'm just here for the destination, and if we wander, blah, 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 that'll be great. And whether it's 20 minutes, a half hour, or 3 hours, you probably had an idea of what you want to do, unless there was a destination, like we want to get to Gooseberry Falls or whatever is up there, right? Then you definitely know, like, we've arrived at Gooseberry Falls, or we haven't, and we're lost, and I hear wolves in the background, right? So what is your Google Map? What is my Google Map? What is the thing, Alex, what is the thing that in your business life says we're on the right track? And though it feels like we're lost now, because the goal is this, because this is the end point that's desirable, whether it's fiscal solvency, having money, developing a good product, or do I trust in the journey enough that it doesn't matter what the destination is, or because I believe so much that this journey will produce this destination?
When I hear you say that, I get a sigh of relief, right? I feel better. I'm like, okay, that's right. Context is everything. Like, if it's hard to articulate because I don't know what the anxiety's goal is. Like, I don't know why it is occurring. And I'm wondering if maybe it's occurring simply because I am losing sight of, like, well, wait a minute, what are my goals? Is my goal just, right. I mean, to answer your question, my goal is to, this probably will be a reflection of, like, the degree of my shallowness of a human being. But I've always described success to me is a graph, an XY axis graph, and success is happiness, the intersection of happiness and being able to buy an Aston Martin. That is what success looks like for me. Basically, I want to be a happy person. I want to be content. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good dad. I want to have a family that I support and I love. And I want to love what I do. And I want to have some financial freedom. And I don't know, I have specific goals outside of that. But, and I think the more abstract, like, the less I define my goal, the easier it is to get anxious about achieving it, I think. So maybe that's just a sign that if I spend some more time, or like, hey, Alex, what's the, are we going on this proverbial hike just to sightsee? Because then who cares where we end up? Like,
Right,
we're just
right.
wandering. Or is it, no, I want to get to this place. And then it's like, okay, well, is there a map? Like, like how long is it going to, I can do the work to make sure I'm not as anxious along the journey. But yeah, like I sometimes vacillate between, which that was a SAT word, vacillate. I had to learn that for the SAT and it stuck with me.
There you go.
So
Mine was pithy.
pithy?
Yeah.
Like that's a pithy remark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What does pithy mean? It means like sarcastic?
I
or
didn't
like,
do well on the SAT.
I think
so
it's
don't-
like some world of like,
short, brief.
yeah, pithy. Like it's not like, oh, that was kind of snarky.
Yeah.
But I was an English major, so I should know that, but I
Yeah.
don't. But anyway, I vacillate between like, this idea of success, but also like I love storytelling and I love creating things. I love making things. That's one of the reasons why, drove me to do this podcast
Yeah,
is because
right.
this idea of making and creating things that allow people to think and to feel, that fills my tank up. So that's kind of a destination for me, but it's sort of abstract and hard to articulate it. So maybe that's why I sometimes feel anxiety about, well, where am I headed? Am I headed there? Am I making good time?
So in your, I want to draw more parallels between the hike that you were on with your fiance and
My lovely, beautiful, intelligent, kind fiance.
there you go. Do you want to put the applause in there again or so?
Yay, she's the best.
So you felt a responsibility. You were in a position of leadership on that.
Yeah.
It sounds like the two of you agreed you would lead out on
Yes.
this.
Yep.
And so when you're leading out and she's asking, do you know where you're going? Are we lost? Is this supposed to be here? Are we doing the right, those things can, how did that go? Like, how did you feel? And I guess that's the question I should ask is what was it like having her question, not your authority, but question your leadership,
Yeah, it
question
sucks.
your skills, your ability to
I get snippy with her all the time. I'm like, I think at one point I said to her verbatim, I said, from now on, you're only allowed to express doubt if you pair it with a solution. I think that's verbatim what I said to her.
very authoritarian, right? like, here are the rules of my leadership.
But I think the reason it's so challenging for me is because I want to be able to be depended on for leadership. Like I want to be a leader and I want to know where I'm going but sometimes I don't. And I feel embarrassed and ashamed about that. Or
Sometimes I don't know where I'm going.
Yes.
Okay,
Or
so
like,
you want to be trustworthy. You want her to be able to rely on you.
yeah. And I want, and she has high expectations too, which I love that about her. And I want, but sometimes, I'm human. And like in that
Right.
particular instance, we kind of put together the hike last minute. It was sort of, we split up the days. So it was like, okay, Alex was in charge of Friday and Saturday. Haley was in charge of Sunday, Monday. And so, this hike was on my day. So I was de facto the leader, but we kind of planned it last minute. So the expectation was like, okay, Alex, like you're in charge, figure it out. And, she's not like, she didn't say it like that, but I think sometimes, I worry about this idea of like, okay, I'm in charge. I need to know. Cause if I don't, we're in trouble, as opposed to like, well, we'll figure it out together. Like it's not the end of the world.
So in your work life, much like the hike, you have people who rely on you to have planned the day, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at you saying, do you know where we're going? Do you know
Yep.
where we're heading? And why should we follow you? Who put you in charge? I mean, it's your company,
Yep.
it sounds like, right? So
Yep.
I'm just learning a little bit about this.
Correct.
So do you feel that same kind of response coming in your work life? Like, hey, you get to question when you've got a legitimate solution or something. I'm probably not phrasing it exactly right, but how does it happen in your work life when people are relying on you and you seem to be questioning, are we going in the right direction? Am I lost? Am I doing well as a leader?
Well, I can't express that in my work life. Like I basically have to give well, that's not entirely true. If there's not a solution that's apparent, I'm honest and I'm like, hey guys, listen, here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Here's my plan of attack. Here's how I would approach this. What do you think? And that's kind of my default. A lot. And what's interesting about creative profession is a lot of people don't know what they want until you show them what you would do, and then they realize what they don't want, and they're very vocal about what they don't like.
Yeah.
But so it can be a really like, it requires thick skin in the sense of like, I'm tasked with problems that have no definitive black and white solution. I have to present an opinion, and that opinion is judged. But in my work life, it's basically like I have to figure it out, and I will be judged, if they like it or if they don't, is whether or not I've figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be draining, I think. And a lot of times I feel like if I don't, this is the truth. If I don't do it or if I don't figure it out, it doesn't happen. Like we're screwed. That's it. But I also, now that I'm talking, I wonder if there's probably something there in terms of like, I have a hard time allowing others, like teamwork comes to mind. Like I sound like, oh, everything's on me, as opposed to like, well, wait a minute, is it on me? Like,
that's part of your Google map, right?
Yeah.
Is it on me? Where's the place that I can rely? Is there a does the work environment have a culture that's reflective of my values and my goals and things like that? So if there is a setback or if we're wandering for a while, how do we deal with that in this environment? And is it okay for the people that rely on me? I don't know if you consider them employees or co-workers, consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay for them to look at me and see that I don't have all the answers, or is it okay for them to question my leadership in a certain realm? Or
I want to
is that
be
not okay.
I want to be confident and secure enough to be vulnerable in that regard with coworkers and clients and subcontractors and everybody. But I think a part of me holds on to that, like, no, they can't see weakness. Like, I got to be strong, which is stupid and silly. But I'm afraid that if I appear that I don't know what I'm doing, they'll be like, well, okay, we're moving on.
I'm not following this guy.
Yeah. This guess, this ship is...
Unless you've intentionally developed a culture in that environment where you can, like whether it's you and Haley, you can say, actually, I don't know where the hell we are right now.
Yeah.
I really don't know where we're going, and I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried that we might be getting lost. And if you have that kind of a culture, then you may attract employees. Switching back to your workplace, you may attract employees who say, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to work in an environment where if I'm messed up or if I don't know,
I can say that.
I can say that.
Yes.
And together we can say, okay, well, we're a little lost right now, but if we do these things, if we follow this model or whatever, follow this map, we will find our way, and it may lead us to something better that we hadn't even imagined or whatever. I mean,
that is what I want. 100% what you've just described is what my goal would be as a lead, like
for your organization.
Yes, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
I think, and I've read books. I think that I forget what it was, but it talks about like, I think it was Tao Te Ching. I forget. But anyways, basically talking about leadership in terms of like the best leader. The best leaders allow others to like lead together, as if there's no authoritarianism sucks, basically. And I believe that. And I think it's a question of just having confidence. And we did a little time check there. I appreciate that. The confidence to be like, just relax and just be vulnerable. Like, I assume everyone's just like so focused on me and my company, which is just not true.
Right.
Like people, like people have their own things they're worried about. They're not worried about whether or not I do everything perfectly. Like, it's just a little selfish and like kind of narcissistic to be assuming. But I feel like the brain tricks my brain, and this is just maybe me. My brain tricks me into thinking that everyone is got me under a microscope. And it's like any time I slip up there, like, oh, that's 5 points. We're taking 5. That's 10 points from Hufflepuff gone.
But this is the anxiety stuff you talked about the first time that we met, right? How you talked about kind of a general just a general anxiety that you carry with you, or that
Yeah.
nips at your heels, or something like that. That might be a way of thinking about it. That it's always kind of in the back of your mind, and that there's always a sense that people are looking at me, people are looking at Alex, and they're evaluating me, and they're judging me, and that can be debilitating in some situations, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you don't have a good support system where you can have someone talk you down and say, no one's judging you, no, or like, that's what people do. People are always looking at their boss and being a little critical, and that's what comes with the boss's role.
Yeah.
That might be something that you have to get your head around. But that idea, what you're describing, seems like part and parcel of being the leader, being in that leadership role, that people are going to judge, people are going to be critical, people are going to. So I go back to, what are the principles that you want to embody as a leader? What are the principles you want to live your life by, so that you have that map in place, so that you can say to Haley on the hike, the purpose was to go on a hike.
Yeah.
And the worst case scenario, we turn back around and we go to the beginning,
Yep.
if we didn't get to the origin, but we went on a hike and we saw these beautiful things and we were together. Like, maybe togetherness is the most important value.
Yes.
And so the hike, the nature, and all the other stuff, the bears you didn't see, whatever, not as important, but we were together. And so, what's that in your leadership role? And
That's deep. That's profound stuff. I had not. Yeah.
That's usually when I like to end a session, by the way, when someone says that's deep and profound, then because anything else I can say is just going to cheapen
Downhill.
that. It's going to go downhill.
I had not considered that, and yeah, wow. That in and of itself is there's tons I could talk about there, but this episode does have to be a little bit shorter. Unfortunately, I don't think that there's like a "oh shucks" sound effect on my pad here, but if there was, I'd use it. So I'm gonna start kind of wrapping this one up, but I do think, like, for the hike, I know a lot of this pressure comes from within. It's internal as opposed to
Right.
external forces. Because had I said to Haley, "Hey, like, I don't entirely know 100% the route, but like, I figure we just go on a nice hike," she'd have been like, "Oh yeah, totally chill. I'm down. Like, as long as we're outside and the weather was nice, we'll just go as far as we want and then we'll turn around." It's just a question of sitting down and being like, okay, what are the goals? What do I want? And once you're a little bit more clear on that, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, am I, headed there or am I not? And also too, like, the last thing I want to say is, and I do want to talk about this maybe in future sessions, but this notion of like faith, right? Because I remember having this conversation with myself when I was on the hike, and I was like, I don't need to look at my phone. I know this path is going to lead us to the place. I just need to trust it. And I had that internal argument back and forth. And finally, I checked the phone, and what do you know? I was right. We were on the right track. And there's something to be said about that for life. It's like faith is challenging. Especially my upbringing, which we weren't particularly religious, but I respect this idea of faith. I see its value, and it, sometimes you just have to have it.
Yeah, the question, the bigger question is about faith in what, right? Faith in my phone, faith in,
True. Faith in Google Maps.
So I think that, like, if the one thing I would want you to consider, between now and the next time we meet, like, what is my Google Map? What do I rely on? What is that thing that I go to?
Yeah.
Is it, because you started and said, unfortunately, there's no Google Maps for life, or there's no, but I think there probably is something. There's, and I don't know that it necessarily has to go, for many people, probably go to a spiritual place or a religious doctrine or dogma place. But I think it can also be in things that you believe and want to see in the world that you live in, whether it's being nice to other people, whether it's, saving the planet, whatever it is that gives you meaning and makes you feel fulfilled in your life.
All right, homework. I've written it down. Figure out my Google Maps. On that note, we're gonna wind this one down. So, Thank you for listening. Our time is, what did we say? We got to figure out what that line is going to be. It looks like our time's up. This is my therapist and I, hey, is there going to be a third episode? Maybe that's going to be my thing. Is there going to be a fourth episode? I'll just say that at the end of every episode. But thanks for joining, and we will catch you later. Okay. Stay safe and happy and all that good stuff. Okay, bye.